If you want to track the history of Lebanese global migration in the 1920s, you really shouldn't look at a map. You should look at a taco.
I mean, that is such a great way to frame it,
Right. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, you and I are analyzing the Querida Food Guide.
which is a really fantastic subject.
It really is. But we aren't just reading down a list of appetizers and mains here. We are traversing what is basically a living, breathing culinary ecosystem located in Al Barsha, Dubai.
Yeah.
The mission today for us is to decode this menu, to, look past the basic descriptions and understand the history, the geographic adaptations, and the exact flavor mechanics that make Mexican culinary traditions so incredibly complex.
It really is the perfect framework for this material. A menu of this caliber, it isn't merely a transactional list of what to eat.
Right.
It's an edible record of human migration. It's centuries of scientific trial and error in the kitchen.
Yeah, it's like a map.
Exactly. The architecture of this specific guide is designed to walk you from foundational, slow-cooked elements all the way through to these highly complex communal feasts. And it relies heavily on sudden thermal and acidic shifts to keep your palate engaged.
So let's start right at the foundation. Before we can navigate the larger plates, we need to examine the native wildlife, so to speak.
The heavyweights of this culinary landscape.
Exactly. The guide highlights several quote-unquote Mexican dishes that act as the primary proteins for the entire ecosystem.
And you really can't understand the broader cuisine without understanding how these foundational meats are engineered, because they dictate the flavor profile of literally everything that follows.
Okay, so I'm looking at the barbacoa. The guide specifies it as Monclova style. This is beef cheek.
Yes.
Now, beef cheek is a notoriously tough cut of meat, yet the guide describes it as incredibly rich and buttery. So mechanically speaking, what has to happen to a tough cheek muscle to transform it into the centerpiece of northern Mexican hospitality?
Well, it all comes down to collagen breakdown.
Oh.
Beef cheek is a heavily worked muscle, so it's packed with connective tissue. If you grill it quickly, I mean, it's unchewable. You just can't eat it.
Like shoe leather.
Right. But Monclova-style barbacoa utilizes a low, slow, moist heat environment. Over several hours, you cross a critical thermal threshold, around 160 degrees Fahrenheit.
And what happens at 160?
That rigid collagen literally melts. It converts into gelatin. And that gelatin permeates the muscle fibers, which is what gives it that signature buttery mouthfeel, rather than just tasting like, a fatty piece of steak.
Wow, so it's basically internal basting.
Exactly.
And sitting right next to it in this landscape is the birria, a traditional goat or lamb stew, slow braised in an adobo of guajillo cheese and warm spices, served with a savory consommé.
Beautiful dish.
But I want to pivot down to the coast for a second. We observe the Baja-style fish and its light, bubbly batter armor, and the camarones, inspired by the shrimp capital Mazatlan, swimming in a buttery adobo.
The coastal adaptations are fantastic, yeah.
But then, and this is where the history completely fascinated me, we find the pastor. It's chicken thigh marinated in dried chilies and pineapple, cooked on a vertical spit.
Ah, yes.
Structurally, it looks exactly like a shawarma.
Because it essentially is one.
Wait, really?
Yeah, this is where we see that perfect example of evolutionary migration you mentioned earlier. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, there was a massive wave of Lebanese immigrants into Mexico.
Okay.
And they brought their traditional vertical roasting technique, the shawarma spit, with them.
Right.
But over time, the dish adapted to survive in its new environment.
So they use local ingredients.
Right. They swapped the lamb for local meats, and they replaced Middle Eastern spices with native dried chilies and achiote.
And what about the pineapple? I mean, is that just a sweet garnish to contrast the chili?
Oh, not at all. It is actually an active tenderizing agent.
Oh.
Yeah, pineapple contains an enzyme called bromelain, which actively breaks down protein chains. So as that vertical spit rotates, the juices from the pineapple on top drip down over the meat,
So gravity is essentially dragging a proteolytic enzyme down the meat,
continuously tenderizing and basting it.
while the outside gets crispy.
Precisely. It is an incredibly sophisticated cooking mechanism disguised as street food.
That is amazing. Let's look at the flora of this ecosystem, the vegetarian foundation. The mushroom tinga takes button mushrooms and peppers and slow simmers them in a smoky chipotle tomato broth.
Which is a brilliant plant-based twist on a 19th century classic.
You're right. And you've got the rajas con elote, poblano strips, and corn in heavy crema.
Yeah.
And of course, the frijoles refritos con queso. mashed pinto beans fried in butter.
The absolute bedrock of the cuisine.
But I'm stuck on the chorizo. The guide notes it's seasoned heavily with dried chills, vinegar, and garlic.
Yeah.
But unlike Spanish chorizo, which is a solid, cured link, Querida's version is crumbled and fried. Why the difference?
Well, that structural mutation changes everything about how the ingredient behaves. Spanish chorizo is cured, meaning it's designed to be sliced and eaten as is, or gently warmed. Mexican chorizo is fresh.
Right, so by crumbling it rather than keeping it encased, it's like comparing a slow-release fertilizer to an immediate flavor bomb.
That's a great analogy. You are maximizing the surface area of the meat that interacts with the heat of the pan.
And that changes the flavor release.
Exactly. When you maximize that surface area, the intense, smoky, acidic fat is rapidly released directly into the pan. It allows the flavor to permeate whatever it touches.
Like the eggs or the beans or the tortillas.
Right. It fundamentally alters the landscape of the entire dish, rather than just sitting on top of it as an isolated slice.
That makes perfect sense. So with those foundational elements identified, we move to the trailhead of the menu, the starters.
The entrance to the ecosystem.
Right. And right at the entrance, we find the crown jewel, the guacamole, hand-mashed Hass avocados, white onion, cilantro, serrano chiles, and sea salt.
Beautifully simple.
And it is served alongside the communal watering hole, the chips platter. A massive mound of golden corn totopos surrounded by 3 salsas, warm queso dip, and guacamole. But I have to ask you about these totopos. Are these just like standard tortilla chips?
No, and the distinction is vital here. Totopos are made from corn that has undergone nixtamalization.
Nixtamalization.
Right. It's an ancient Mesoamerican process where the corn is soaked and cooked in an alkaline solution, usually lime water.
What does soaking it in an alkaline solution actually do?
It dissolves the hemicellulose in the corn cell walls.
Okay.
This frees up the niacin so our bodies can absorb it. But from a culinary standpoint, it fundamentally changes the structure.
How so?
When you fry a nixtamalized tortilla, it develops a much sturdier, crispier architecture than a standard corn chip. It is biologically designed to hold up heavy, moisture-rich dips without instantly turning to mush.
Which brings me to the nachos Querida. The guide describes a literal mountain of these crispy totopos, capped with a snowy peak of cool crema, salty queso fresco, and fresh pico de gallo.
It's a heavy dish.
It is. And here's my question. In a culinary ecosystem this heavy, is a starter of loading nachos meant to satisfy you? Or is it designed to trigger something else? Because frankly, eating a mountain of cheese before a heavy meal sounds exhausting.
And that is the paradox of the starter. It raises a really great point about the biological imperative of menu design. The starters at Querida are engineered to stimulate your digestive system, not exhaust it.
Really? Even with all that cheese?
Yes, because you have the rich, heavy fats of the cheese and the fried chips, sure, but they aggressively cap it with the cool crema and the sharp acidity of the pico de gallo.
Ah, because the acid triggers salivation.
Exactly. Acid causes your salivary glands to flood. It physically awakens the digestive system. You're eating heavy fats, but the acid is signaling to your brain that the palate is energized and ready for more.
It's preparing you for the main journey.
Precisely.
And as we move deeper, we hit these warming vents, the thermal contrasts. There's the consomme de borrego, a deep, aromatic lamb leg broth where the meat just falls off the bone.
So good.
Next to it, the empanadas. These half-moon delights stuffed with asada or tinga, served piping hot with a zesty dipping sauce. So you're getting these sharp shifts in temperature and acidity right at the start.
Which ensures your palate is fully awake by the time you reach the main plates.
Which brings us to the grand vistas. The specialties and main plates. This is where the foundational proteins we decoded earlier are housed in these brilliant structural vessels.
The handheld ecosystem?
Exactly. We document the minimalist tacos, served with just white onion and cilantro on soft, hand-pressed corn tortillas. And right next to them, this massive evolutionary cousin, the tacazo de birria.
Oh, the tacazo.
An oversized 6-inch tortilla stuffed with cheese and birria, then grilled until golden. It's huge compared to the taco.
It's a total divergence in intent. The taco is about pure, unadulterated meat flavor. The tacazo is about texture, crunch, and richness.
Then you have the burritos, 12 inches tightly rolled with rice and beans, and the tamales. The guide calls them a labor of love, steamed safely inside their corn husks. Structurally, how does the masa, the dough, stay so incredibly tender? I've had dry tamales before, and they are like eating sand.
Yeah, a dry tamale is tragic. It is all about moisture trapping. The corn husk isn't just a wrapper, it acts as a semi-permeable membrane.
Okay.
When you steam the tamale, the husk allows the heat to penetrate and cook the masa, but it traps the fat from the filling and the steam inside. It creates a localized, high-humidity microenvironment.
So it's steaming from the inside out.
Right, and if the masa-to-fat ratio is correct, the starch hydrates perfectly without drying out.
That is fascinating. We also observed the flautas, shatter crisp deep-fried tortillas, and the tostadas.
For now, this is the first part. Be ready for the second part of this great journey where we dive even deeper into the flavors and stories of Querida. Stay tuned, we're just getting started.